Okay, so another review, and this time we're reviewing two completely different characters from the last time, and it's actually also two husbandos this time, in Zhao and Chongyun, by Kermit's Zhao and Chongyun, and she's in chat. She can say hi if she wants to. I think it's only right that we start with the 4-star and work our way up to the 5-star, I think. So we're just gonna go ahead and do that. Hey, level 90 Chongyun. I don't have a built Chongyun, so I don't really know much on how to properly build him. So we'll see how I judge this and see how it goes. Although 2000 attack is already pretty solid, I can say that much. I pretty much only use my Chongyun whenever I want to play national team, and you don't really need an invested Chongyun to make that work. So let's dive right in. Also, one thing to point out is that Kermit is like a pretty big Chongyun simp, which gives me a bunch of question marks as to why Chongyun only has friendship 7 instead of friendship 10, if that is the case. So I'm already going with the judginess right here. So my hopes aren't high right now. Okay, lots of attack, 60% crit rate to 123 crit damage. So that is actually really good golden ratio for the crit to crit. Not bad. What I do know is that Chongyun doesn't require a lot of energy to get his burst up, so a low investment on energy recharge is also good. Interesting. You have the Cryo Cup, which is what you should be doing if you are doing a main DPS Chongyun, if that is actually what you're doing. A lot of investment in attack. So a lot of people would say that you could probably maybe take a little bit of your attack and invest it spread across your crit rate, crit damage a little more, but that isn't really necessary. So based off these stats, this isn't looking too bad. Low defense. This might actually end up being a good build. That's a little concerning. Okay, anyways, let's move on to the weapon. Prototype archaic, so free to play, and Kermit is a free to play player, so I guess this is fine. Refinement rank 1, which is probably due to terrible RNG on getting the prototype things from the world bosses. One thing I do have a question for is why is it only at level 80 and why hasn't she gotten it to level 90 yet if you are simping for Chongyun? Why? Free-to-play wise, this is not the worst weapon of choice, and considering that you have pretty good crit stats, this is actually decently impressive. Sad to say. I was hoping for some disappointment. And this also kind of explains why your attack is super high, is because this weapon gives attack. So that kind of explains why it gives a lot of attack. So I think that's the reason why. So that makes her overall stats kind of better, to be completely honest. So this is actually looking pretty good so far. Just the fact that it's only at level 80 is a little disappointing for a Chongyun simp. She should do better, a lot better. We'll ignore artifacts for now, and you got a C3. I mean, I guess that's fine. It's really dependent on RNG, but I mean, has Chongyun really appeared much on banners? I tend to ignore him because I don't need him. I don't actually know how much he's appeared in banners. I don't feel like he's appeared too much, so having it at C3 is maybe not all that disappointing, if I had to be completely fair and honest about that. So I guess I'll give this one a pass. She's halfway to completing the constellation. I guess I'll give this a pass. And interesting. Huh? Wait, what? Level 5, 5, and 11. 11 minus 3 is 9? 9? Oh, not fully built. I see. Not fully built Simp Chongyun, and she wanted it to get reviewed already. What is happening here? Or 8? Oh wait, yeah, 8, not 9. Pretty disappointed here. I mean, looking at the stat spread, I guess this is not a main DPS Chongyun. This is maybe more leaning towards support. Big damage on the burst is what it's looking like. And it is fine to be a simp of a character and not have them as your main DPS, unlike some crazy people with their DPS Barbaras. So that's fine. Sometimes the character that you like the most, that you simp for the most, is just not meant to be a main DPS. DPS Barbara. So that's fine, but at the same time, only level 5? Usually if you want to, like, you tend to stop usually at level 6. That's usually a good place to go. Investing on the burst first is probably the way to go if you're not doing a main DPS auto attack build. But the fact that assuming cryo build Chongyun, and the fact that his E lets your normal attacks do cryo damage, you could do more investments on your other skills. And since you are free to play, which means your RNG on artifact grinding is pretty dismal because you're not farming, you can't really farm for too many artifacts in one go. Leveling up your talents higher to kind of mitigate your artifacts is probably a more guaranteed way to go to increase your DPS overall. But let's just take a look at your artifacts and see how lucky or unlucky you are on that front. But yeah, not even level 6. That's a little disappointing. And we have a 2-piece cryo, 2-piece glad, which isn't bad. This is fine. Whoopsie daisies. That's totally fine. All 5 stars. That's great so far, and all at level 20. We'll see if that's going to end up being a good choice over here. As I said, I don't have a Chongyun myself, or will have one built, so I actually don't know what his better build is, what builds you would want on him. But what I will say is that this isn't a bad build. 2-piece is technically easier to build, and you get the cryo bonus, which is good for Chongyun, and extra attack is never a bad thing. Build a better Catboy. Okay, crit. Not actually, this is good. Just straight up, this is good. It probably rolled once into flat attack, but you dodged the defense percentage, so good job on that. It went more into crit rate instead of crit damage, and a lot of people would say a lot of people would prefer the opposite. In my opinion, I say it kind of depends on where your stats lie, and the fact that you have a good spread, like the golden ratio of 2 to 1, I say this is pretty solid. Good job. This artifact game. Okay, moving on to the feather, and we have only crit damage. It rolled into flat attack, which is a little unfortunate, although overall, this is actually not bad. This is actually pretty good. Getting it to level 20 is totally fine. It rolled decently into crit damage. You got a little bit more of energy recharge, which is not necessary Chongyun in my opinion. How did this spread go? Twice on crit rate, once on HP, and once on energy recharge maybe? So not bad. Not bad. Pretty good actually. Because it's a feather, you could probably be a bit more picky and try and get 2 crit stats instead. And considering you're like what, AR 55 plus, you should be getting picky by this point. So yeah, there's that. Although I do know you are also probably building up on other characters at the same time. So maybe you haven't invested time into working on your Catboy Chongyun. Overall, not a bad feather. Could be better, but not bad. And finally, the Sans piece. The proper main stat, crit and crit, pretty good. It rolled once into flat attack. It rolled at least once into elemental mastery. It rolled at least once or twice into crit rate. This is actually, again, not too bad. You got a decent spread on your crit and crit damage again, so this was pretty solid. Obviously, if you wanted to do better, actually, if you wanted to, how would you make this better? Maybe not roll on flat attack and get more crit somewhere? This is actually pretty good for what it's worth. You could replace flat attack with energy recharge, but again, Chongyun doesn't really need more energy recharge, so the flat attack might actually be good, to be completely honest. This is actually a solid piece for someone that doesn't require energy recharge. Obviously, you'd probably want more RNG going into crit than anything else, but yeah, good job. Okay, and next we have the goblet, which I'm assuming is going to be cryo. It rolled pretty nicely on crit damage, so pretty solid there. Rolled once into elemental mastery, which means it rolled everything else into crit damage. Interesting. Well, that was good. That's a good one. Obviously, you'd probably want crit rate included there, but again, elemental goblet is hard to farm. So I say this one's a pretty solid one again. Dang. It's actually a decent Chongyun. It's just that you shamed it by not fully leveling up his weapon. Last but not least, we go into the circlet. Crit rate, which explains why you have a really good golden ratio. Wow, okay, rolled into attack and rolled into crit damage, and rolled at least once into HP, and you didn't get any into flat attack, so that's not bad. This is actually pretty good. You've got some solid artifacts on your Chongyun. Your artifact RNG, pretty solid, I would say, overall. You just absolutely shamed your sipping prowess by giving him a level 80 weapon and not a level 91. Like, how could you? How could you? I might have to give this a pass on the talents if you are actually using more of a support, but come on. Level 6? Get your talents to level 6 on your simped character. Come on. Come on now, Kermit. Come on. You can do better than this. And that being said, I can give a pass on this because RNG sucks. And I don't think he's been on too many banners. And I guess I didn't really rate this aesthetically. There is some color matching with the gold, so it's not the worst thing aesthetically, although the darker browns on the weapon to his white and light blue colors just don't match. This is like Chongyun when he's an apprentice and he has to use like that apprentice claymore that doesn't look all impressive. If the color palette of Chongyun with the brown and the white would swap places, this would look aesthetically pleasing probably. Still wouldn't match his hair. You'd probably be a normal brown haired boy to match it aesthetically, but the weapon aesthetics could be worse. It could be worse. We can all agree on that, right? And I did say that I would review Zhao next. Well, let me just grab a little bit of water first. But one thing to point out is that Kermit has a sister who also simps for Chongyun, who I also have access to, I believe. So instead of reviewing her Zhao next, why don't we do a Chongyun simp comparison and see who among the sisters has the better Chongyun instead. I think that's something we need to do, so we're gonna do it. Adventure rank 51, so Kermit's sister is a lower adventure rank. And something I will also point out is that Binks, Kermit's sister, claims to be the better Chongyun simp and have the better Chongyun. Let's see how this goes. Okay, so we have a level 90 Chongyun, so same as. Attack is lower though, which means a different weapon maybe? Because the higher attack came from Kermit's weapon of choice on Chongyun. So let's see how this goes. Let's see how this goes. Oh! Yikes! Okay. 5-star weapon, so that's an improvement. Energy recharge, which is something Chongyun doesn't need. But the overall thing to point out is that 5-star weapons, regardless of the extra stat, is going to be better than a 4-star weapon because they have better base attack. So I would say that this is the better weapon of choice. Unfortunately, again, we have another weapon at level 80 out of 80. So a little shame there. But overall, better weapon. So 1 point for Binks, 0 points for Catnip. Also, I forgot to look at all the stats. Okay. Okay, yes. So less bonus in attack, but that's fine. Energy recharge is higher, but that's because of the 5-star weapon of choice, which I guess it kind of just means that Chongyun doesn't need cryo resonance, and that could be helpful. As for crit rate, crit damage, it's not the golden ratio, but it's at least above 50%. It is lower than Kermit's for crit damage, however. No, wait, it's higher. Okay, so less crit rate than Kermit, but higher crit damage. So it's not the golden ratio, which is kind of the ideal perfect world situation. But in my opinion, if you're above 50% crit rate, then you are allowed to kind of go ham on crit damage afterwards, in my opinion. So it's kind of a hard decision to decide on whether or not this one is better or not. What I do worry about though is that there is a heck of a lot more defense added to Binks's Chongyun. More elemental mastery, which is really dependent on if Chongyun is in a melt team, I guess, because you don't really need elemental mastery for freeze. Maybe you need it for shatter. I don't actually know completely how shatter works, if that requires EM, but okay. Same amount of cryo damage, so even on that. Okay, so we looked at the weapon already, 5-star weapon, so that's point goes to Binks. Skip artifacts again. Ooh, that looks interesting. That looks interesting. Ooh, RNG has not been nice on Binks, with only 2 constellations. Dang. Okay, so, okay. 1 point for Kermit for constellations, so we're tied 1 for 1. Next, let's look at talents. And there we go. Easily a point for Binks on talents, because she went all the way to 6. No questions asked. I think everyone in chat can agree that this Chongyun, in terms of talent investment, is better, because we go 6, 6, 8. And that is looking like a better build for Chongyun. Proper. Older sister needs to be ashamed of herself. That being said, I think as far as artifacts go, I have a feeling Catnip will win, just looking at how much defense is added onto this Chongyun. But we do have a different set. We have Blizzard Strayer and Noblesse. Thinking about this, I think Binks has the better set, especially if you're not like a main DPS auto attack Chongyun, which it looks like Kermit and Binks is building towards. A Noblesse Oblige means higher damage on your burst, and that is what they've both invested in. So you get more big PP numbers on your burst damage. So I think overall, Binks has the better set than Kermit, not to mention that the 2-piece Glad on Kermit's Chongyun, who already has an increased increased attack percentage means that you're not really spiking up higher. I don't really know how to explain that one. I need to know more math terms to explain that one properly. But I think Binks has the better set between the two at the moment. Well, let's see how these things have rolled. Everything's 5-star, level 20. Let's see how this goes. And we got the crit, and ooh. So not perfectly rolled. It went into defense percentage, but I understand why Binks went all the way to level 20 in this case, because look at that crit damage rather. That rolled pretty nicely on the crit damage, so being tempted to get up to level 20 is understandable. Not the worst thing to do. This one's okay. This one's okay. I understand why she went to 20. This is a pretty solid one. Just, you know, a little unlucky there. And next we have another double crit feather energy recharge, which you definitely don't want on this Chongyun considering the weapon he has equipped on, but it could be worse. And more energy recharge is better than, say, going more flat defense. So I'll leave that as a little bit of a pass on that front. Quite a bit of rolls on elemental mastery, which again would really only work for Melt team in my opinion. And again, I don't really know how Shatter works if it requires EM, so I don't really know if that's good or bad. That being said, it did roll, I think it did roll at least, but definitely rolled on crit damage. I don't know if it rolled on crit rate. Actually, I don't think it rolled on crit rate, but then again, crit damage is above 10%. Pretty solid, not bad. Next, we go into Descends, and we've got attack and double crit again, which is overall better than Kermit, but unfortunately this also rolled a little bit into defense, but because it rolled into crit damage and crit rate as well, this is again pretty good. I think this one is better than what Kermit had, depending on how you look at it, but yeah, not bad. Let's look at the Cryogoblet next, and yeah, Cryogoblet harder to farm, so it's not the best thing in the world, but it did roll into crit damage, so that's nice. It unfortunately rolled into flat defense, and that's a pretty big no-no, especially since it's at 72. I think that rolled like twice into defense, once into crit damage, and then once into elemental mastery. That's pretty bad, but it at least rolled once into crit damage. Would I have gotten it to level 20? Because it's a goblet, and goblets are one of the harder ones to farm, I probably can give this a pass to get it to level 20, I think. Gosh, I hope the 16 to 20 did not roll into defense, because that's just depressing. But anyways, it's okay. This is okay. Last but not least, crit rate, so same as, and ooh, okay, nice spread. A lot into crit damage, a little bit into HP, which is eh. And then crit attack percentage is not bad either. So also overall, I would say these artifact rolls are okay. Overall, leaning more towards good. It's just unfortunate with the defense rules. Set wise, better than Kermit. Okay, so let's tally things up. Stat wise, overall, I think Kermit gets the win slightly just because of the amount of defense and elemental mastery this one has, and the excess energy recharge. This weapon is obviously way better. Artifact set is better. Rolls, I would say about even. Kermit had more rolls into crit damage, but Binks had more spread between crit damage and crit rate. It's just unfortunate that she rolled a decent amount on defense. Consolation, Kermit takes the win because she has more cons. Talent-wise, it goes to Binks. So overall, I think Binks has the better Chongyun. Overall, I think it's pretty clear. I think people in chat will agree with me that the younger sister has the better Chongyun. Oh boy, how unfortunate could that be? Poor Kermit. Oh, unfortunate. Especially considering that the older sister is a higher adventure rank as well. Ah, that's brutal. That is brutal. And level 90 Zhao, 1800 attack, so that's fine. I do not have a Zhao, so again, I have no idea how to build him. Actually, I kind of do. I kind of understand him. I just don't have one, so we'll see how judgy I end up being. So here we go to the stats. Okay, not bad so far. Ooh, that's a lot of defense. Excuse me? Kermit Simps for Chongyun, but I believe Zhao is husbando for her. And I'm looking at this defense, and I'm starting to doubt this. I'm starting to doubt this hard. As for crit rate to crit damage, is actually pretty solid. Actually quite solid, actually. It's not a 2-to-1 ratio, but again, as long as you're above 50% crit rate, which Kermit is healthily above, you can go ham on crit damage and you're almost at 200. That's pretty solid. No investment in energy recharge, which from my understanding on Zhao, that's bad. You want energy recharge on Zhao so that he can get his burst up faster. So pretty much all the energy recharge you should have invested in Zhao went into defense. That's a shame. That's a huge shame. Are you sure you're a Zhao simp as well? I don't think so anymore. How could you do this to your Zhao, having no added investment into energy recharge? How is he going to put on his mask all the time? You're going to miss out on it. You're going to have to wait and build up all the energy particles before you can go Master Zhao and go OP, which is how you want to be playing Zhao. Unless you go 4-mana Nemo whenever you're attacking Spiral Abyss. 61 in Nemo damage, that's fine. And then weapon, we have Deathmatch. Remember when I said that current was free to play? I take that back. She's bought Battle Pass at least once. Level 90. Level 90! So you don't simp hard for Chongyun and leave him with a level 80 weapon, but you can simp hard enough for your Zhao, even despite the fact that you put a bunch of defense on him? Excuse me? What are you doing? Conflicting on who you should be spreading the love so you break them both by investing like incompletely on both of them? Focus on one and then move on to the other like a proper person, Kermit. What is this? Aesthetically, the red with the green doesn't really work, but the red and more sinister looking polearm does kind of work with whenever he puts on his mask and he ends up going a little bit more dark. So we'll give it a pass on aesthetics. Good job on the crit rate, which explains why it's such high crit rate. And level 90, so good job. Good job. Finally, I can applaud on a decent weapon on Kermit. Good job. Good job. I'll pass artifacts real quickly. I think I saw something I didn't like to see. Constellation 0, obviously she's not a super whale megalodon, so that is totally fine. And talents, we have a spread of 7, 8, 10. Oh, we have a crowned husbando. Okay, okay. Something I can accept. A crowned husbando. Good job, Kermit. Good job. And you crowned the proper talent, if I know correctly. 8, 7 on the 2 talents. Honestly, I don't know. Actually, no, I think this is good, because Zhao, once he's in his burst, you want to be plunging, and plunging is tied to normal attack, so I think that's good. I think overall that's good. I'm wondering if she's going to be crowning the normal attack at some point. I would assume so, but I can accept this spread on talents. Good job on your talents. And now let's dive into the artifacts, where we have a 2-piece Glad 2-piece VV, which is actually, I believe, is best in slot. I believe this is best in slot, potentially, although considering the lack of energy recharge Kermit has, I would actually replace, whoopsie daisies, I would actually replace the Glad with the new artifact set that gives energy recharge so that you can get more uptime on your burst, because energy recharge is definitely going to help you, even if it means sacrificing a little bit of attack. If you get your burst up more often, that overall means more DPS, in my opinion. But this set is definitely his best in slot as of right now. I don't know if anybody's been testing a 2-piece VV, 2-piece, whatever the energy recharge is, to see if it ends up being better. I would say it ends up being better, because then you don't need to make a 3-mana Nemo team to get burst uptime quickly, but I didn't test that, so I don't know for sure. But let's begin with the flower. I like that crit damage, but I don't like that defense. 2 defense stats too. Yikes. Yikes. Okay. Okay. So you got some good rolls on that crit damage, but it's a flower. And usually you can be a little more picky with your flower. You want that crit on your flower, Kerms. But instead you went with a double defense. Excuse me? What? And considering it rolled into flat defense and defense percentage, I would have left this at level 16 and not gone further, honestly. Why? Why you do this, Kermie? Why? Why you do this to your Zhao? No wonder why he has so much defense. Useless, pointless defense. Do better. Do much better. For your husbando. For your edgelord husbando, please. Next, let's look at the feather. Okay, finally, crit. It unfortunately rolled into defense percentage, but it rolled very healthily on crit damage. So, you know what? I think those two cancel each other out. You got the double crit, and this artifact gets a nice, good, healthy pass from me. Getting it to level 20 is totally fine. And let's take a look at this Sans, and let's see how bad or how good it is. Oh! Okay, you got the crit damage, you got more defense. At least it didn't roll into defense. It rolled on flat attack, which is like, eh. It rolled on elemental mastery, which is not bad for a Zhao, because I would assume you swirl a decent amount. Although, because it's Zhao, I believe you don't really need to swirl. You can just focus on his solo and Nemo damage. So, depending on what type of team you have, this is like okay at best, maybe. Sans is a little harder to farm than Flower and Feather, so not having double crit on this artifact is like okay. That defense percentage could have been replaced with crit damage. It would have been a lot better otherwise. Yikes. Anyways, The Cryogoblet? Oh, interesting. You got the Cryogoblet on... Oh, sorry, not the Cryogoblet. The Anemo Goblet on your two-piece set. Wait. Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense. Your off-piece is the feather, and your feather is actually not that bad. A little judgy that your off-piece has defense on it, which is not that great. Let's just take a look at this. Let's see how this is. Okay, so again, Goblet is a harder one to farm, but good god, that doesn't look pretty. Okay, at least you rolled into crit rate, which is kind of why you kept it. Yeah, I don't know if I would have kept this at level 16 or been tempted to get it all the way to level 20. I'm just going to assume that you were farming for a really long time and was not getting any Anemo Goblets at all. And so you kind of had to go with this, and you wanted a little bit more damage off your Zhao, so you got it to level 20, regardless of the substats. But that's like pre-AR 55 business. You should be getting better Anemo Goblets by now. Yikes. Oh well. Oh well. Last but not least... Oh, crit damage, okay. Okay, actually, no, crit damage circlet makes a lot of sense because you have the crit rate weapon, so good job on making that decision. It rolled pretty healthily onto attack percentage, which is fine. It didn't roll at all into crit rate, which is unfortunate, and instead it went into HP. And because of Zhao's caveat with HP, having a little bit more HP is not a bad thing to have. So rolling on HP over defense percentage is far more valued on Zhao than other normal DPS characters, so that's not too bad. Not too bad. Overall, you could do better, honestly. You could do quite a bit better on your stats, regardless of your RNG luck. But it could have been worse. It would have been worse. Between your Zhao and your Chongyun, I honestly don't know which one is better built off the top of my head. I'm gonna say it's a hard one. I think artifact-wise, your Chongyun is better. Everything else, your Zhao is better. So it's kind of hard. Actually, no. I guess that means your Zhao is better. Since artifacts is so dependent on RNG, I would say your Zhao is better. You should be ashamed to call yourself a Chongyun simp. Your YouTube profile picture should be changed immediately. And that's all I have to say about your two characters. Well, and that was another review, this time by Kermit, a Chongyun and Zhao simp, and she should be a little ashamed of calling herself a Chongyun simp, especially since her sister beats her out on Chongyun simpery. But that will be the end of this review.